Hi everyone, it's Yaz from Yorkshire I Therapies. Welcome back to another episode of Hop, Skip and a Jump. Today I'm joined by the amazing Vicki from the Doghouse Fit Train Fun. In this episode, Vicki dives into why she is absolutely obsessed with something called free work. It's something that I'd heard a little bit about before, but when we met at a conference, Vicki was able to inspire a little bit of insight into this incredible technique that we can use with our dogs to help build confidence. Let's jump into it. Sound asleep. Good doggies. So, Vicki, thank you so much for joining me today. So, we met back at the APBC conference. So, that's the Animal Pet Behaviour Council. Yep. That's right, isn't it? So, not that we've had to rehearse that before we started this conversation, but I was there with Fatizo, and you were on the stand next to us, weren't you? You were bang next to us, and I remember your stand because you had that fantastic neon light behind. I was like, ooh, shiny. So let's talk about what brought you to that conference.
So I think I've been really lucky in my kind of business, really. So I'm part of puppy school, and I know there's a lady there called Nicole Harris, and she is part of the APBC. So I think I was invited through Nicole via obviously the other avenues there. So, and it was a really good place to go and do a conference. I've never done a conference. I've always done the local little stalls and things like that, which have been great, but actually going to see people in the industry working with dogs or cats or whatever it happens to be. So, and it was well, as we both know, it was a really lovely weekend. It was a fabulous little setup, and sort of just talking to people about my toys. So I make a lot of enrichment toys and interactive toys because I found over the years that places of certain pet shops and things like that, won't go into it because I don't want to offend anyone, but they just don't seem to have appropriate range of things for dogs that really support dogs. I think a lot of items that I think are for sale encourage behaviours that I think we don't want from our dogs, and we're always trying to stop. Whereas then we go to the shops and we buy these things for our dogs. So yeah, what I sort of always aim to look for is what actually supports the dog mentally and emotionally, rather than just going, right, well, that's going to wind the dog up, that's going to tire, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky, and that was where we met, and we spoke about pain, which was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then obviously we had lovely Carol Hughes, and we were chatting about all these lovely interlinking kind of things. So yeah, it was fantastic.
It was a lush weekend, wasn't it? And I remember, so I think I had my laptop and I was doing some work. So in between, well, when the lectures were on, that was kind of like a downtime, because obviously when you go to these conferences, I didn't even realize it was your first conference, but the tea and coffee intervals are so intense, and you've got to kind of do your sales pitch quite quickly, and there's loads of people crowding around, and you've got to catch them whilst they're having the tea and coffee before they then go back into the lectures. So it was during that downtime that I was sat with my laptop, and I spied that you were working on it. Was it a tablet? Did you have a tablet?
Yeah, I had me tablet. Like what am I on here?
Yes, yeah. So you were on your tablet, and I was like, obviously, chronic procrastinator. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you watching? What are you watching? And you were working. You were assessing a dog's movement, going through enrichment things. So that is how we started the conversation about this free work. So I'm just going to leave it at those two words. So for anyone that's listening, I have a real wide range of listeners, so therapists, dog trainers, pet parents, hydrotherapists, whoever. For people who have never heard about free work, what is it?
Free work is just amazing. It was, now Sarah Fisher always says that she didn't come up with it, and it was always designed by the dogs. So free work has been used a lot. I think it started in Battersea, because that's where Sarah used to do a lot of her stuff, and how it can really support dogs. So free work is a lot to do. It's much more animal education sort of centered. So the idea behind it is that the dog can learn through their own choosing. So we can teach them things like recall, we can teach loose lead walking, we can support balance, we can, really support the traumas that are going on inside by offering them choices, and choices which involve sniffing, licking, chewing, shredding. So any dog that quite likes to shred, and how that can help the nervous system just start to learn how to regulate. A lot of dogs, especially if they're in pain or they have discomfort or things like that, they can't regulate their bodies very well. And then people wonder why their dogs are struggling with the outside world. They can't walk on lead, or they're finding recall really difficult. Maybe they're finding wildlife incredibly overstimulating. Of course, we throw genetics in with everything.
Yes, absolutely.
But with free work, it gives the dogs and the handlers a chance to connect with one another rather than working separately all of the time. So if anyone ever gets a chance to go to Tilly Farm, take it. It is a wonderful place. And when we can start to observe our dogs and their movement patterns, when we can start to observe what they're interacting with, what we can start to observe in how they're feeling in that moment, it gives us so much more information about how we can support our dogs. So let's say we're looking at teaching a dog loose lead walking. So the first thing that we would naturally want to look at is, how does the dog move? Because if movement is impacting the lead or the harness, or if the harness is impacting the way that they're moving, we can't see what's going on if we're trying to work down and teach our dogs to look up, and actually there's a lot more going on underneath it. So the first thing that we always do is we just watch and observe, which for some people is really difficult because they want to micromanage their dog constantly all of the time. No, don't do that, and don't do this, and I want you to do this. We should be learning, and it can be really difficult for the human to step back and go, what, I'm not meant to do anything at all? No. Just let them be, just let them tell us what they need and what they're enjoying. So when we can start to observe the dog. So I did it the other day, which I know we might come on to in a little bit, for a course, and I was watching my spaniel do this, and I didn't notice it when I was in the room with him. It wasn't until I was watching it back on the video when I went, oh, he can only move around the room in one way. He could only move anti-clockwise. And he did it twice. He moved around the room anti-clockwise. Now, I know for my own dog, for Chip, he's having Mauritia massage. And I only know about Mauritia massage because of you. So we have a lady, she comes and she does massage. So he's overdeveloped on his back. He's got tightness through his hamstrings. He's got tightness through his front limbs. So I know why there's probably a big reason he can go anti-clockwise, and we're always querying certain things. But had I not been able to watch that and watch it back and over again, could have completely missed it. And we tried all these other things and we're still not going to get any further forward. So the nice thing with free work is free work gives us a chance to just step back and be quiet and just shut up for however long we need to shut up for. And usually it's around 17 minutes. 17 minutes seems to be the optimum time. And if we think about taking our dogs just for a walk, how long do we usually go out for? Like 20 minutes, like a 20-minute mooch, if we can. So we step back, we observe. We don't try and put outcomes to things. So we're not trying to get behaviors. We're not trying to be like, right, well, they must do this. They must sit. They must lie down, or they must look and give me eye contact. I want them to drop that toy there and then. We're working on these moments. So everything is about, okay, well, I've got a goal in mind, but I need to step back and take that away, because that might not be the dog's goal. We might be constantly like, but this is my goal. Like, but it might not be your dog's goal. And actually, there might be reasons why your dog is struggling to give toys up, maybe, or they're resource guarding, or, you know, whatever the behavior happens to be, because in that moment, they literally physically can't do it. And we want them to go, right, do it, and you need to do it now. It's such a wonderful world. And I think because I come, my background isn't trauma, you know, I think we've all gone through trauma at some point in our life, but, you know, I went for a really bad stage, and it led me to free work, and it was actually a particular book called The Body Knows the Score.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. I have read it cover to cover, and I didn't realize that the work that I do, so, you know, working with dogs who predominantly do have behavioral issues because they are in pain. Pain makes you feel very unsafe, if we were to put it really, you know, really plainly. And it was so I'm part of the International Association for the Study of Pain, so they're like the leading researchers in pain. And I was watching a lecture about trauma informed care for, I mean, this is human based, and this was for victims of torture.
Yeah.
And how we can help manage their chronic pain, because certain parts of the brain shut down because they've been through something traumatic. And it led me to this book. And I picked it up for about £3, you know, off like World Books or something secondhand. And I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. Oh my God. It just completely, it just added that additional dimension to the work that I was doing. And I was like, oh wow. So if anyone, you know, with anyone who's potentially interested, or I mean anyone working with dogs, I think needs to read this book. It's not a heavy textbook or anything like that. I found it very digestible to read. So it was a conversation. It's like he tells stories, doesn't he, about how he works with was it from the Vietnam War? Was it soldiers from the Vietnam War?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
it's been a while since I've read it. I need to read it again.
Absolutely phenomenal book. And when you said trauma, that was the first thing that came into my head.
I think
what a book.
We really forget that as you know, we're all these sentient beings. We all carry emotion, and we all process things in pretty much the same way. The brain is the main. The brain keeps you safe. That's the whole point of the brain. And I quite like to talk to people about like the nervous system is like a little camera, and it just takes snapshots throughout the day of that made me feel safe. I don't need to worry about that. But the idea, I guess, behind like PTSD, and is it CPTSD, and obviously there's different sort of strains of it, that it's when that and something, and I think this is where people can find this hard with dogs, is it might not seem traumatic to us, but to the dog, it can be massively impactful. And so that system takes the snapshot, and it now says, this is not safe anymore. We need to be on high alert. That nervous system is working like someone is whacking the fire alarm, the panic button.
Yeah.
Dog is just no longer feeling safe. And it might be someone goes, yeah, but it was just a dog barking at them. But if in that moment they felt already unsafe, and that dog barked, and they wasn't expecting it to bark, or they trod on like a thorn at the same time, you know, all these little things that we really don't take into account. And I was, you know, and it was really for some reason I was thinking, I don't know why, but you know those shower moments where you just go, let's think of something very random.
Yes, absolutely.
When you just go, why did I think of that? But I don't like the beach. It's not that I dislike the beach, but I'm not a massive fan of the beach. And it wasn't until I was thinking about it, I was like, but why don't I like the beach? Why do I prefer the woods and not the beach? And I think it's possibly, I remember my parents, and they would always, and they still bang on about it now, oh, every time we took you to the beach as a kid, we'd have to stop and empty your shoe out so that all the sand came out of your shoe, and then you put it back on like 2 minutes later. You'd be moaning and whinging all over again. So from that very early stage of childhood, my body obviously went, it's uncomfortable to go to the beach. It's probably a little bit uncomfortable because you get sand in your shoes and sand on your feet, and I really don't like that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And although it's just the beach, it's nothing sinister. It's not like I've been swept out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
These early memories can really impact our dogs, or impact us, and how those early memories can impact our dogs. So from the moment that those puppies come into the world as these fat little blind squidgy little worms, where they are learning from that moment, what is that environment like? And that environment can be the blueprint to when they move into their new environment. So 8, 10, 12 weeks old, we know from that moment they have already done a like 2 months, 3 months worth of learning before they've even entered the new home. And it's things like hip dysplasia. We know that can start from the moment that those puppies start moving around. So if that can start to become an issue from, day 1 or day whatever it is that they start wiggling around, we're going to have a dog who's going to start to struggle. And if we're waiting for but they're not 7, 8, 9 years old, the issue has started already. So this is where free work can be massively beneficial, that when we can just step back and observe the dog's movement patterns, and why can they only move to the left, and if they can only move one direction, and we're dealing with reactivity, is the dog in question more reactive when the trigger is coming onto their painful side, rather than the dog coming into the side that isn't as painful? So it's trying to be able to develop a plan for the guardians to be able to walk away and go, right, well, how do we support this dog? How can we work with this dog? And obviously I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm not a vet, I can't diagnose anything, but it is that, get your dog to the vet, get your dog to the right vet. If you're not happy with the first quote, shall we say, we find somebody else. And if you're still not happy, you get yourself to a physiotherapist and we find out what's going on. And it's amazing and it's scary at the same time how many dogs just are struggling with so many things that are going on. And this is where free work can be massively beneficial. It can be used in conjunction with physiotherapy as well. I'm sure in some respect it can be used with what you do as well. So just being able to have snuffle mats set up in the room, so if the dog goes, I need a break, they can just disappear off, go and have a snuffle, come back when they're ready, or a lick or a chew. How we can use free work in classes, especially adolescents, because we all know that adolescents are it's the arsehole era, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, of course it is. It's hormones. It's I've got all this flurry of emotion, and I don't know what to do about it, so I'm going to start shouting.
Yeah, but and I can't regulate my system. I don't know how. So free work can help the adolescent stages, or the dogs who don't know how to regulate their system, to regulate, take a breath, slow down, and then we can start to put the brain in a better learning mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with it was interesting what you were saying about just allowing the dogs to move. So especially when it's like an initial assessment with the dog, what we do is, so basically this is awesome, right? My clinic is next door to a graveyard. How perfect is a graveyard for a reactive dog? We've got loads of paths we can deviate down. I can see everyone from a mile away. All dogs are on lead. Perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little lap around the graveyard, and I'm looking at the dog to see if there's anything major that I can see. But usually they've just got out the car, they're fizzy as hell, they're pulling like a steam train, they're wanting to sniff, wee, poo. And I just say to the pet parent, listen, I am not looking for heel work. I'm not even looking for loose lead walking at this moment, because the fact that your dog isn't loose lead walking, again, is part of that communication. And I just have a look and I'll go, okay, there's a little interesting bit. And then it's actually when they come into the clinic and pet parents got a cup of tea, and I'm like, sit down, have a breath. And they go, what do we do with the dog? I'm like, everything off. Just leave him. Stop touching him. Just leave him. And like the so the clinic, it smells like dogs. It smells like there'll be smells of treats and stuff around. And I just let them sniff. And what I do is I just sit on the floor with my cup of tea and my notebook, and I'm talking to the pet parent, but I've got one eye on the dog, and I'll go, "Oh, do you always sit like that?"
Mm-hmm.
Sit like what? Well, you can see that they're sat like this, and they maybe sat into one hip. It's just interesting. You might have to look back on photos to see if they've always done this. And it's that's where I see the most, not through the traditional right walk up and down, trot up and down, because to get a dog to walk up and down can be quite difficult for some dogs. So especially if they're painful, it's easier to travel at speed because the limbs are suspended in the air. So that's why you might get a trot. Like, have you ever tried to get a collie to walk? It's near on impossible. It's just like they're just like that. They're just
it's literally like trying to get a spaniel to
walk in a straight line. Like, absolutely not. They're just bred to weave, and that's just them. So I get more information out of when they're in that room, because the dog's like, "What do you want me to do?" And nothing.
Yeah.
I haven't got a job. No, you've not got a job. Oh, okay, weird. And then they'll go sniffing around the room. I'm like, there we go. Yeah. There we go. And then, you know, if they come and interact with me, I'll be like, "Oh, hello, chicken," you know. But some dogs really struggle with intentional touch. They can't differentiate me from a vet. They're like, "This room smells like dogs." Yeah. I've been in a room that smells like dogs before, and I don't like it. So it's about, again, building that place of safety for the dog. So I explained to pet parents, listen, you've come because, you know, you've got a complaint about the right hind limb. If that's the first thing I look at, I've absolutely broken that trust, I said, and like before I've even attempted to build it. So I will start with what they'll allow me to work with first. So sometimes that can be like tickling on the chest is like it's a little bit of a gateway. I go, "Oh, is that nice? Oh, can I have a little feel of this arm? What are you doing?" Nothing. Oh, sound a little tickle. And I have to keep asking permission. I ask permission and I listen, and you follow that communication. And I think, obviously, in a veterinary appointment, that isn't possible. You've got 10 minutes. That dog is going to be extremely over aroused. It's you know, which can then mask pain and things like that. So, like you were saying earlier, it's about finding the right vet. So I always say you need to have a veterinary practice that aligns with you. But if you have a vet that you need to find a vet that you like in that practice, because if something happens and something goes wrong, you have to put your complete trust and faith in that vet. And if they'd already rubbed you up the wrong way a little bit, you're not going to trust anything they say in potentially a life-threatening situation. Yeah. Because again, it comes down to communication, doesn't it? So I like quite a straightforward approach. I like to know my options. I want to know A, B, and C, and I want to know what the trajectory of each one will look like. Yeah. Whereas some people that would be like, "Well, no, I need you to tell me what to do." And I'm like, "Oh, if you tell me what to do, there's going to be an issue. Don't like that. I want to know my options and make yes, I want to make an informed decision about my dog's care." Informed decision.
And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? And when we can start to look at how people have these choices, actually, and I think we can start to see those things. Like, say, I want informed choices. I want to know if I picked A, could B and C still be part of the shall we say, or is it definitely I can only pick one? And I think we can start to see, whereas when people need that extra support and go, I need to tell you what you need to do, we start to see these behaviors in our dogs. And if we're not giving our dogs those choices, and they're forever waiting for someone to go, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck, that learned helplessness almost is how we can start to open our dog's world up and empower our dogs, support our dogs, guide our dogs, and give them everything that we as humans always have. We know our own minds, and we understand how impactful whether we make a decision or not, whether it's going to be a good decision or a bad decision. But our dogs don't really get that choice, so they can end up making more wrong decisions because they don't know what else to choose, because they're like, but choices are really limited. I'm not even given an A or a B.
Yeah.
There's one choice. So, you know, with free work, it really does. And like I say, it's that empowerment. And I think we need to not be scared of that world. And I think a lot of people just go, but surely that's going to have my dog become dominant and take over the world. You know, all these things. It's like, how are we still stuck on this? How are we still in this mindset of dominance where your dog is going to take over the world? My dogs already take over my world, regardless of even if I didn't give them any choices. They live here, and I have to kind of work for them. So that's already, you know, they've taken over my world.
So dominant. So dominant.
Know, it's insane to think that our dogs will take over our world if we give them choices. It's like, I'm screwed. The minute that puppy comes home, we're screwed.
We're screwed. That's it. Life over.
Yeah, you know. So I think free work, it just gives our dogs choices, and it builds their resilience, and it starts to build trust. And I think we forget that our dogs need to trust us, because if they don't, if we haven't got trust, then we've got nothing. Absolutely. And like I say, even trust with the vets. If we can't trust the person who's going to be a responsible caregiver to my dog, then I need to find someone that I can trust. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
You were saying about the free work building resilience, and I'm thinking of a dog. I'm thinking of a dog in my head that comes to clinic. So I'm sure his mum won't mind me speaking about him. So this dog came from Ireland as a rescue. He's like a foxhound, so he was picked up as a stray. He has got, and this is something in all my years working with dogs I have not seen before. He has a fear of doors being shut behind him and being in an enclosed. It's like it's a fear. He's absolutely terrible. So actually getting him into the building, that can take anywhere between 5 minutes to 25 minutes, and it changes. It changes. So he, like, you know, his mum has put so much work into him. You know, she was, you know, working with a force free behaviorist, thank God. And basically, when he reverses, we go with him, because when you put resistance into resistance, you're just going to be met by more resistance. So he'll do 2 steps in and I'm going back out, 3 steps in and I'm going back out. And sometimes that we can go all the way down the hallway and then, nope, change my mind, I'm going back out again. So the way that we kind of do different things. So I work with my hydrolats. So geranium, something that I really lean into. So that is put all over the doormat. So geranium is really good for emotional regulation, especially if he's having really big feelings, and he loves it. He selects it a lot, so that goes everywhere. So the threshold is a little bit more welcoming. Of course, we use an abundance of treats. So mum has treats, low reward, medium, and high value, or whatever you want to call them. And the last time that he came in, I was sat in the hallway because I'm quite tall as well. So I have to be mindful of that. So I sat in the hallway and I just said to his mum, she was crouched in the doorway, and he had one of, the double leads.
Yes.
So he had one of those on, and we tried everything. I'd even got a rabbit in, broke it into tiny little bits, and I'd done it on a little snaky kind of path to get into clinic. He could see me like bouncing treats into clinic, and he was going, "No, that's not going to work today. It's not going to work today." And I was like, "We need to change it up. We need to change something up." And I said to her, I was like, "Can you turn that lead into like a longer one with a handle?" She went, "Yeah, I can." I said, "Just do me a favor." I said, "Just try that." I said, "And just step back a little bit." I said, "I think potentially you're blocking the door for him." And we did that. And he went, "Oh, for God's sakes, that's taken 20 minutes for you to work out."
Yeah.
Right, I can go get my treats and I'm into the room.
Yeah.
Pain is not static. It's constantly changing. Trauma is not static. It's constantly changing. He decided that day that he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And it was up to us to problem solve.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Brilliant, you've done it now." No, he didn't do that to be difficult. He didn't do that to be dominant.
No.
pain makes you feel unsafe, trauma makes you feel unsafe. At some point, this dog has gone through such a trauma. And because I said to it, like we were talking about it, and I said, I think that something's happened where he's been lured into somewhere and then a door's been shut behind him.
Yeah. Yes.
I said, and that has profoundly affected him for the rest of his life. The rest of his life. He knows that this room's a safe space. He's been, you know, like crikey, he's been like 5 appointments, 6 appointments, something like that. But that day he was like, can't do it. And then I was thinking, what other things have we got going on at the moment? Okay, the weather's really cold, so we're potentially having an acute flare up. Okay, we're spending more time outside, so actually I can't control the sound of the traffic at the end of the driveway. So that was adding into it, and it was, and I was like, I said to her, listen, I could bring a mat out and work outside. I was like, if he doesn't want to come in, we can do it. And then I was like, actually, he could come down the side of the building and come in a different entrance and see if that works. But I was like, just unclip that lid and just see. And then that's how we got him in. That's how we got him in.
Do you know, I've literally got a client whose dog is exactly the same, not quite to that degree, but we were doing some bits and pieces, got barrier frustration, doesn't like doors being closed behind, came from, she kind of knows the background, but went into the Blue Cross, and I was stood, so I've got 2 doors, I've got a back door and a front door in my unit, and I was just stood in the doorway just watching and observing, and this dog just kept running back to me. He would work for mum, and then he kept coming back to me, and I stood there, and you know when you go, I'm stood in front of the door.
The door.
And I moved, and he went, oh God, thank God for that. My access is not blocked anymore. This is a massive thing for a lot of dogs. It's like the same with people. If your access or exit is blocked, you panic. And if you've already got trauma over that, and like this dog, we said the only time he probably had interaction with people is come out of a kennel, do whatever, go back behind a door, and possibly similar in the previous home as well, from what I can kind of gather. And so this dog, anytime the door is open, straight out of it. No way, no, literally straight out of it. Squeeze through little baby gates, and I was going into a different room. So what we're working on is using, so he was really enjoying the snuffle mat. And it could work for your client as well. It's just by when they come out of the car, first thing might be to snuffle, or and then it might be that you set what would be known as like little bridging stations up, so that you add these little bridges. So each time that he moves forward, oh, there's something really nice there. And like I say, taking that step back, not blocking the exits or entrances. And each time he's just sort of working his way through, and he can stay at one mat, and we can go, okay, you want to stay here? This is fine. We can just hang out here until you're ready to move on. That he goes, oh, okay, I'm ready to move. I'm ready to keep going. So we can really start to use, free work. It doesn't have to just be set up in a particular way. It's how we can use it in everyday life. Like free work. Maybe mum could have a little free work bag of all of his favorite things, and all of those lovely things can be put out for him when he needs to recalibrate and reset himself, and to see if he can move forward. So
could I do like a little trail of treats and then a snuffle mat and then a little trail of treats and then something else? Or
just start with, I'd be quite mindful of a trail of treats, just in case it feels a bit like a bribe or a little bit coercive.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas if the snuffle mat is there and they start to get, or a licky mat, again, it depends on the dog, it depends on their preference. But let's say a snuffle mat's always a really nice one, because they really get to sort of snuffle around. And if he then just goes to a snuffle mat and he snuffles and he sort of sees one up there and he goes, I might just go and investigate that, and goes off and goes in, and he might then choose to go back to the other snuffle mat, because he's like, it's a bit close to the room there for a moment, I'm just going to move. Okay, fine. We can just, and then if he moves again, we can start to reward that. So the idea is that we can start to take food out of the hand, and then as they're moving towards these items, we're rewarding the process of what they're choosing to do, rather than luring. Because this is the important part for dogs, because as soon as food's out of the hand, the dog goes, well, you don't need me anymore. Clearly, you don't need me. Whereas if we can start to teach them the skill, which is, okay, well, you want to move to that one. Well, I can reward that movement for you and that feeling. Okay, well, you want to go and investigate that room. Well, I don't need to reward that because that's just through choice. But then if they go back to a snuffle mat and go, that was actually really quite overwhelming, I just need to take a moment. Okay, well, then we can come back and snuffle here. So you may find that having a few options, or even just smells, even like wellies and coats, it doesn't always have to be about food. Having these sort of little pathways to get that seeking system and that sort of movement towards what we're, okay, well, going into that room is really difficult, but actually there's things on the way that you can investigate and take your time, rather than just being, and I know you don't, but right, it's a bit like the vet, get in the room, get this, get in, and you can see the dog's like, whoa, hang on, these things yet. But so you might find a little bit of free work with this dog.
That's what I'm thinking, that it would be really good, because you've also written a fabulous ebook, and I'm going to plug it because people need to know about this ebook. So it was in this ebook that you explain like this traffic light system. You tell people how they can set up their own free work, which is what I was interested for my own dogs, but particularly for this dog Cooper who struggles. I was like, I've got to think of something else. So if he does take a step back for whatever reason that may be, I've got a backup plan.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your ebook. Tell me.
Chaotic to calm. I think it's one of those. I've wanted to write a book for a while, and I think because I work with a lot of reactive dogs, it's one of my biggest joys, to be fair. I really enjoy working with reactive dogs, and I think because all of my dogs, I would say, apart from the Spaniel, have been reactive more towards other dogs, not people. I've been very lucky that I've not had a dog who's reactive towards people.
Yeah.
But been reactive in some way, shape or form. And again, going on my free work journey now, it's really made me sort of sit up and go, do you know what? We need more. I don't know if I want to call my book literature, but we need more information.
It is literature. It is literature. For God's sakes, don't downplay it. It's fantastic.
It's really hard because you sort of find yourself just going, I really wanted a book where people can just like easy format to understand. And maybe they haven't got the funds to be able to go and see a trainer yet, but they're in a bit of a pickle. They're in they just want to start something, and they I just don't want people reading the internet and, right, well, if I get a slip collar, or if I get a prong collar, or if I get this, and we're like, no, let's just remember, we don't need to hurt our dogs. We don't need to put them through something. So the book itself, we talk about why we empower our dogs and why it's a good thing and it's not a scary thing to look at. We look at also not judging, because we can judge behavior. And again, behavior is communication. And the only way our dogs can communicate to the aliens of their world is by doing these behaviors that might seem bizarre and weird and embarrassing and awful, but we're like, but how else they can't write it down going, hey Vic, do you know what, I'm feeling really rubbish today. It's like, actually, I'm having a hard day because maybe I've got a headache, maybe I've got a sore, I've slept funny and my shoulder's hurting or my back's all twisted or my neck's hurting. I can vocalize these things, the dogs can't. And I think that if we constantly judge it, we're never going to get any better. Then we start to talk about what is very going to be beneficial for the dogs. So we talk, obviously it talks a lot about free work, and then the traffic light system is basically based upon I used to work for a college. It was a land-based college, teaching students animal care. So I would have them for their practical sessions, and we would have certain animals that were green, easy, amber, a little bit harder, or the red animals. And I thought, well, if we had that for 16, 17, 18-year-old students to say, look, you're not actually ready to work with that red animal yet. We still need to work your way onto the amber animals. Surely that's how we can start to look at everything in life, going, well, actually, if I wanted to run a marathon, well, I'm still at a green level. I need to be able to just run a mile, let alone 26 or 36 or however long a marathon kind of is. So I still need to be in that green area. So when we talk about green, amber and red for our dogs, so maybe the dog's reactive in the home, well, where is it that the dog feels the safest? Well, then we work with that, and then we work our way to the red areas. If they're out in the big wide world, what are the hot, the horrendous, the spiciest, the most painful areas that your dog can go? Okay, well, we don't go there. We stop going there. We don't do these things. Again, it goes back to the beach. I don't go to the beach because I don't enjoy it. So I need to stop forcing my dogs to do something that I can visibly see they are not having, and they are having the hardest time in the world. So the book hopefully it gives people this opportunity to start their reactive journey, and even if it just means that they're waiting to go and see a dog trainer, at least they can go with something, and there's trackers in there, there's trying to think, there's little printouts, the candle analogies in there, so they can print things out and go, well, what lights my dog's candle? Well, do you know what, they hate dogs on TV? Okay, well, that's a candle, let's write that down. Let's really start to understand what triggers my dog. So it's got little things that people can print out, and they can have a visual, because I think it's really important people have visual, not just a bombardment of information. So it gives them a chance to start something, and then if they do go and see a trainer and they've made some progress, but they obviously want to progress it further, they can at least go to their trainer and go, well, look, this is the things that I've noticed, and how can we work on those? Well, then at least it gives the trainer also a head start, going, right, okay, well, I totally get that now. And it just gives everyone an opportunity to work together. There's a bit about body language in there, and, you know, reading your dog, reading the really subtle cues of body language that can be massively missed, you know, even just the little lip licks. You know, oh, well, or that yawn, oh, are you tired? No, they're stressing out, they're massively stressing out, they ain't tired, they are stressed. And then the aim for the book is, I'm currently working on turning it into an online course as well.
Yes, you are.
I'm trying. Do you know what? I did a load of recording yesterday, and for some reason my microphone went all to pot. And you know when you go, no! I've got to re-record all of that. But yeah, so the aim of that, there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more information. There'll obviously be a few more visuals, and a few more little sort of trackers in there as well, and a certificate. Everyone loves a certificate. So
I love a certificate. Chronic certificate chaser. Love a certificate. I think that course sounds absolutely fabulous.
I just need to pull my finger out.
It's difficult. I get it, because especially so when you do something live, I don't know if you have this as like a fellow businesswoman, but when you do something live, you're like, yeah, it's done, it's out there, it's in the world. Blah. When you have to edit something, like, God, do I really look like that? Yeah. Oh, I sounded like an absolute dickhead when I said that. God, you didn't pronounce that word right. God, you sound so Yorkshire in that. I am my biggest critique.
Oh my God, I sound like a right farmer. I need to re-record that. It's like, oh my God, for God's sake, changed it. And it's amazing, and it's painful. And you know what? I did a 4-minute, I managed to do one little video or 2 videos. It took me nearly 24 hours to put the video together. And you know when you go, why did I think this was a really good idea?
Stupid getting out of my comfort zone. I hate it.
I know. And I'm like, why did I think? And someone said to me, well, why don't you just get somebody else to do it? No, because I am a control freak.
Exactly.
And I said the exact same words. I said, I am a control freak, and I am a collie. I need to control everything that's going on, because if someone else makes it better, I'd be like, yeah, well,
rubbish.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Damn you.
Hopefully, if I can get all the voice recordings done, then it's just making the videos sort of all together. But yeah, I'm hoping at least by the end of the year, I'd like to say.
That's fine. I'll hold you to that. I'll hold you to that. Like, it's like me, and I'm going, Oh God, like I'm writing my second book at the moment. I keep saying that I'm in the research phase because I just keep researching and making notes, not actually writing anything. If our publisher's listening, I'm very, very sorry. I promise I'm trying really, really hard.
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it. There's just a lot, and I keep going down rabbit holes, and I'm sorry.
No, but this is half the problem, isn't it? And then you
Yeah.
see something else and you go, "Ooh,
Oh, shiny.
then how, hour later, you're like, oh shit, I was meant to be writing a book, wasn't I? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Vicky, if people want to find you, they want to find your ebook and your course by the end of the year, where can they find you?
So the book is for sale on my website, which is www.thedoghousefTF.co.uk. I can never remember. I can never remember if it's just Doghouse or Doghouse FTF. It's Doghouse FTF.
FTF.
DoghousefTF.co.uk. And then if people, the toys are on there, but if people like using Etsy, they can of course go to the Etsy shop, which is www.thedoghousefTF.etsy.com, if I remember that one right. That was slightly different, but they can certainly they can access the Etsy shop through the website as well. So there's always those avenues too.
Perfect. And then you're on Facebook and Instagram?
Yes. So my Facebook is the Doghouse Fit Train Fun. So if they tag that in, that should come up. And I think Instagram is at the Doghouse FTF.
So there you have it, from Yorkshire to Yeovil. We discuss lots of different topics, but most importantly, how we can help instill confidence in our dogs. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share and subscribe. Lots of love to you and your dogs. Take care for now. Bye.